"I've decided to divide the $4 million between my mother and myself," Kingston declared, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. His announcement came not long after my father's funeral. Without so much as asking for permission, Kingston had already looked through the inheritance documents. He turned to me and remarked, "Jennifer, don't be too greedy." A mixture of relief and bitterness laced his words as he exclaimed, "Finally, I can quit my job. I should thank that old fool for this." I blinked in disbelief. "Old fool? Are you talking about my father?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Kingston and his mother immediately began excitedly discussing their plans, buying a new car, indulging in a shopping spree. As they reveled in their windfall, my emotions churned, threatening to boil over. For years, I had handled all the housework, been asked for money, and endured their insults toward my husband. I had reached my limit. With a forced smile, I swallowed my anger and said, "Go ahead, use the money however you and your mother see fit." But deep inside, I knew, I was done. I am Jennifer Whitmore, a 39-year-old housewife trapped in a life I no longer wanted. My parents, both doctors, ran a well-respected clinic in our town. As their only child, I was raised with love and high expectations. They had hoped I would follow in their footsteps, but I chose to study pharmacy instead. Though disappointed, they ultimately respected my decision. 11 years ago, tragedy struck when my mother died suddenly in an accident, leaving my father and me devastated. Kingston, who was my boyfriend at the time, became my pillar of support. We had met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, he proposed. Kingston worked a modest job in the food and beverage industry. Our financial situations were vastly different, but I believed in our love and our ability to overcome any challenge. When I told my father about our engagement, he was grateful to Kingston. "I've heard how Kingston has been there for you, Jennifer. Thank you. Please continue to take care of her," he said, looking at Kingston with appreciation. In that moment, surrounded by warmth and love, I felt certain we were making the right choice. But now, as I looked at the wreckage of our marriage, I questioned everything. The following week, we visited Kingston's family home to share the news of our engagement. His mother, heavily made up and long divorced from his father, scrutinized me with a critical gaze. "Marriage? This is the woman you chose?" she scoffed. "Bit plain, isn't she? And older too? Wouldn't a younger, prettier girl be a better match?" Before I could react, Kingston jumped in. "Mom, you know Bristol Meds, right? Jennifer works there. Her father's a doctor, owns his own clinic," he said, his tone casual. I had expected Kingston to stand up for me. Instead, he highlighted my family's wealth. It felt strange, but before I could dwell on it, his mother's expression changed. "Oh, Kingston, why didn't you say so earlier? That's a different story," she beamed. "Jennifer, dear, what a pleasure to meet you." With her approval secured, Kingston grinned, satisfied, but I couldn't shake the unease settling in my gut. As our wedding plans fell into place, my father surprised me with a lavish apartment in New York City as a wedding gift. Overjoyed, I turned to Kingston and said, "Dad gave us this place. It's more than a gift, it's our new home. Let's live here happily together." A broad smile spread across Kingston's face. It was the beginning of our married life. But as time passed, I noticed something unsettling. Kingston, who had always lived with his mother, had no idea how to handle basic household chores. Cooking was foreign to him. He didn't know how to operate the washing machine, and cleaning up after himself never crossed his mind. At first, I took on all the responsibilities, thinking it was just a phase, but as months turned into years, resentment built up. By our 2nd year of marriage, exhausted from work and maintaining the house alone, I confronted him. "Kingston, I need you to help with the chores," I said. He simply shrugged. 8 years into our marriage, nothing had changed. I continued to manage the house, while also sending money to his mother. Then, one day, my father, whom I hadn't seen in far too long, called me out of the blue. When we met, he dropped a devastating bombshell. He had terminal cancer, with no chance of recovery. Tears welled in my eyes, but my father stroked my head gently. "Jennifer, this is fate, let's accept it," he said. "Dad, why you too?" I choked out. From that moment on, my life became a cycle of work, housework, and visiting my father in the hospital. Though my job allowed some flexibility, keeping up with everything was draining. When I told Kingston about my father's condition, he barely reacted. "That's rough, do your best," he said flatly. He visited the hospital once. Every spare moment I had was spent with my father, Kingston barely crossed my mind. One evening, as my father lay frail in his hospital bed, he asked me, "Jennifer, how's your marriage with Kingston?" I hesitated, thinking about Kingston's indifference and his mother's constant demands. I couldn't bring myself to answer. Seeing my hesitation, my father sighed. "Jennifer, you don't have to suffer. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't struggle after I'm gone," he said gently. His words shattered me. I broke down in tears as he held my hand in silence. 3 months later, he passed away, overwhelmed by grief. I threw myself into arranging the funeral. Kingston, unsurprisingly, showed little interest. He didn't offer any help. I barely had time to process his indifference. Friends and colleagues gathered to bid my father farewell. Even Kingston and his mother made an appearance. The day after the funeral, I received a call from my father's lawyer. When I met with him, he laid out the details of my father's estate. After taxes and deductions, my inheritance totaled over $4 million. My father had not only been a successful doctor but had also invested wisely in real estate. As his only child, everything was left to me. Stunned, I signed the necessary paperwork, overwhelmed by the responsibility of such a large fortune. Back home, I laid out the documents on my desk, exhaustion seeping into my bones. I must have dozed off on the sofa. When I woke up, I heard voices, Kingston and his mother. They sounded cheerful. "Huh, Kingston? Mother?" I mumbled, still groggy. Kingston walked over with an unusually bright smile. "Well done, Jennifer." Confused, I glanced around, then my eyes landed on the inheritance documents in his hands. "Wait, don't go through those without asking," I snapped, anger flaring inside me. His mother, completely unfazed, grinned. "Wow, $4 million. This is incredible. Now we can live in comfort for the rest of our lives." I froze, my mind struggling to process their excitement. I couldn't wrap my head around the sudden shift in Kingston's tone. Then, with a smug expression, he made his announcement. "Oh, about the $4 million. I've decided to split it between my mom and me." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. It was right after my father's funeral, before I even had time to grieve properly. Kingston, after snooping through the inheritance documents without my permission, had the audacity to look me in the eye and say, "Jennifer, don't be too greedy." And then, as if it was some grand victory, he added, "Finally, I can quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man." I stiffened. "Doddering old man? Are you seriously talking about my dad?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Kingston, completely oblivious to my shock, brushed off my anger. "Anyway, let's move forward with the inheritance process and get that money transferred into our joint account as soon as possible." Meanwhile, Kingston and his mother were practically vibrating with excitement, making plans for a brand new car and a luxurious shopping spree. As their enthusiasm soared, my emotions churned. After years of being the one handling household chores, being taken for granted, and even enduring insults toward my father, I reached my breaking point. Still, I forced a smile and muttered, "Sure, use the money however you and your mother see fit." My mother-in-law grinned. "That's the spirit, Jennifer, you're so agreeable. Now, make sure you keep working and earning, all right? We can't have our money running out." I nodded mechanically, but inside, I was boiling. Their spending knew no limits. With the promise of $4 million fueling their delusions, Kingston and his mother lost all sense of responsibility. Kingston immediately quit his job, and his mother practically moved into our home, acting like she owned the place. Every day, they went out to indulge in expensive meals and luxury shopping, returning with bags full of designer items. "That 3-star restaurant was so disappointing," Kingston scoffed. "Indeed, it didn't meet our refined tastes," his mother agreed, as if they were some kind of aristocrats. Meanwhile, I was left to do all the housework, treated like their personal servant. Kingston wasn't worried about their reckless spending. He kept withdrawing from our joint account, burning through my savings of $150,000 without a second thought. Whenever I tried to reason with him, he'd wave me off. "Why are you so worried? Once we get that inheritance, $4 million will make this look like pocket change." That was the moment I knew I had to put an end to this. I changed the locks. A month later, without a word, Kingston and his mother left for a vacation in Hawaii. Of course, they never even considered inviting me. Left alone, I made my decision. While they were away, I changed the locks. A week later, I heard loud knocking at the door. Checking the intercom, I saw them, Kingston and his mother. still in their Hawaiian shirts, looking smug. "Jennifer, open up," Kingston barked. I pressed the intercom button and, in my calmest voice, replied, "Oh, that won't work. I changed the locks." Their smiles vanished. "What? Why?" Kingston yelled, slamming his hand against the door. "Let's discuss this at a nearby cafe. I'll meet you there." Realizing they had no choice, Kingston and his mother stormed off toward the cafe. I took my time heading there, fully prepared for what was to come. "I'm divorcing you." By the time I arrived, Kingston was already fuming. "Jennifer, what's going on? Did you seriously change the locks? Give me the new keys, right now." I met his glare with a steady gaze. "There's no need, you both need to move out. I'm done with this marriage." Then, I slid a piece of paper across the table, a fully prepared divorce petition. "Divorce? Are you serious?" Kingston's face twisted in shock. His mother gasped. "Jennifer, what are you thinking, after all we've been through?" Keeping my voice steady, I asked, "By the way, you two have been spending wildly. Are you sure your finances are okay?" Kingston scoffed. "Of course, your father's inheritance is coming any day now, and besides, there should still be over $70,000 in our joint account." Confidently, he pulled out his phone, opened the banking app, and froze. "What? Where's the money? It was there just the other day." His voice cracked with panic. His mother snatched her phone and checked her own balance. Watching them flounder, I leaned back and said, "Oh, that? I already transferred the $70,000 into my personal account, as part of the property division." Kingston's panic shifted to smugness. "Fine, I'll sign the divorce papers, but then you'll transfer half of your inheritance to me. It's part of the law, marital assets are split 50-50, remember?" I let out a small chuckle. "Oh, Kingston, you're mistaken." I pulled up an article on my phone and showed it to him. Inheritances are not considered marital property, they belong solely to the recipient. A heavy silence filled the air. Kingston's mother was the first to react. "No, that's impossible. Check for yourself," I said, my tone laced with amusement. Kingston frantically searched on his phone, scrolling through legal pages, then, his face drained of color. "No. No way, this can't be happening." Finally, he turned to me, his arrogance gone. "Jennifer, please, don't divorce me. I don't have a job, no savings. How am I supposed to live?" I met his desperate gaze with a look of indifference. "That's not my problem. Take responsibility for your choices. I'll see you in court if I have to." The power shift was undeniable. Kingston and his mother, who had once treated me as nothing more than a source of money, were now completely powerless. I stood up, turned my back on them, and walked away. A new beginning. The divorce went through without a hitch. The court recognized my rightful claim to the $70,000, and I successfully evicted Kingston and his mother from my home. With no savings left and drowning in debt from their reckless spending, Kingston and his mother were forced to move into a rundown apartment. They now work long hours, struggling just to make ends meet, far from the lavish life they once envisioned. As for me, I sold the condo we used to share and moved into my father's beautiful apartment. With his inheritance, I now live comfortably, free from the burden of Kingston's selfishness. I am finally at peace. I will cherish this new chapter of my life, one filled with gratitude, independence, and happiness. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next story. See you soon.